The rejection ceremony was supposed to break her. When Alpha King Kael Vantress stood before his entire kingdom and declared that he, the most powerful wolf in the realm, was severing the sacred mate bond with Seren Voss, everyone expected her to shatter. They expected tears, begging, the pitiful collapse of an Omega who had dared to dream above her station. But Seren didn't cry. She didn't beg. She looked at the king with those strange silver eyes that had always unsettled people, and she said two words that would change everything. I accept. The silence that followed was deafening. No one accepted a rejection. Not from a king. Not from a true mate. The bond was sacred, irreversible, a gift from the moon goddess herself. Yet Seren simply turned her back on the Alpha King and walked toward the doors. That's when his rage erupted. The windows exploded. The stone floor cracked beneath his feet. Wolves twice his age dropped to their knees from the sheer force of his dominance flooding the hall. But Seren kept walking. She didn't know that his rejection was never meant to be accepted. She didn't know about the curse that had forced his hand, or the uncle who had orchestrated everything. All she knew was what she had seen in the threads of fate that only she could perceive. Staying would destroy them both. What neither of them understood was that walking away would nearly destroy them too. The great hall of Ironvale Keep had never been so crowded. Wolves from every corner of Valdris had gathered for the ceremony, nobility and commoners alike, pressing against the ancient stone walls to witness history. An Alpha King claiming his fated mate was rare enough. An Alpha King claiming an Omega from a minor border pack was unprecedented. Seren stood at the end of the crimson carpet that stretched toward the obsidian throne, trying to keep her hands from trembling. Her brother Bram had begged her not to come. He had seen what happened to Omegas who climbed too high. They fell. They always fell. But when the royal summons arrived bearing the king's seal, refusing was not an option. The mate bond had already been confirmed by the kingdom's seers. She belonged to him now, whether she wanted to or not. And the worst part was, she had wanted to. She had seen him once before, 3 moons ago, when he had visited her pack during a border dispute. He had been distant, his face carved from granite. But when their eyes met across the crowded hall, Seren had felt the bond snap into place like a thread of liquid fire connecting her soul to his. Her wolf, usually so quiet inside her, had stirred with sudden recognition. For one breathless moment she had seen something flicker in those pale blue eyes. Recognition, hunger. Then he had turned away as if she were nothing. Now she stood in his hall, wearing a gown of silver silk that his servants had provided, waiting to be claimed by a man who had spent 3 months pretending she did not exist. The crowd parted, and the Alpha King descended from his throne. Kael Vantress was enormous, towering over every wolf in the hall. His shoulders were broad enough to block out the torchlight, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. Pale hair fell past his collar, and his eyes were the blue of a winter sky before a storm. Beautiful. That was what the court whispered about him. Beautiful and terrible and utterly without mercy. He stopped 3 feet from Seren, close enough that she could feel the chill radiating from his skin. That was strange. Alphas ran hot. Everyone knew that. But Kael Vantress felt like frost given form. Seren Voss, he said. His voice carried through the hall without effort, deep and commanding. Omega of Thornwood Pack. Yes, Your Majesty, she replied, keeping her voice steady. Vanished. The bond between us has been broken. I'm sorry, Seren. I can't do this anymore. Vanished. The bond between us has been confirmed by the seers of Valdris, he continued, his tone flat. However, after careful consideration, I have determined that this bond does not serve the interests of my kingdom. A king requires a queen of noble blood, of proven lineage, of political value. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You are none of these things. Whispers became gasps. Somewhere behind her, a woman laughed. Therefore, Before the witnesses gathered here, I formally reject the mate bond between us. You are released from any claim to my name, my throne, or my pack." Seren stared at him. She should have been devastated. She should have dropped to her knees and begged him to reconsider. That's what Omegas did when rejected by their alphas. But Seren was not looking at the king's expression. She was looking at what only she could see. The threads of fate that connected every living soul. The golden thread between them was still there, pulsing with light, screaming that this was wrong. And wrapped around his heart, she saw something else. A chain of shadow. Dark tendrils of cursed magic so vile they made her stomach turn. He wasn't rejecting her because he wanted to. He was rejecting her because something was forcing him to. The realization should have changed things. But threaded through that shadowed chain, Seren saw her own death. If she stayed, if she fought, she would die. So she made her choice. "I accept your rejection, Your Majesty." The words fell like stones into still water. The hall went utterly silent. Shock broke through Kale's mask for the first time, raw and unguarded. "You accept," he repeated slowly. "Yes." Seren lifted her chin. "I release any claim to you, your name, your throne, and your pack." She turned her back on the Alpha King of Valdris and began to walk. The wave of dominance that crashed through the hall was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It drove wolves to their knees. It shattered the windows along the eastern wall. It cracked the ancient stone floor in spiderweb patterns radiating from where the king stood. Seren stumbled but did not fall. She did not look back. The great doors loomed before her, her only escape. 10 more steps. 5. "You will not leave this hall." His voice was barely human, layered with the growl of his wolf. The command slammed into her with physical force, but Seren had spent her entire life learning to endure. And unlike every other wolf in that hall, she was not bound to obey him. Not anymore. She pushed through the doors and disappeared into the night. Behind her, the Alpha King's roar shook the very foundations of Ironvale Keep. The stables were deserted when Seren arrived, her silver gown torn at the hem from running through the corridors. Her mare, Mira, whickered nervously at the distant sounds of chaos echoing from the great hall. "Easy, girl," Seren whispered, fumbling with the saddle straps. "We just need to get past the gates." Her hands were shaking, her whole body was shaking. The bond she had just severed was screaming inside her chest, a raw wound that would take years to heal. Her wolf paced restlessly beneath her skin, confused and grieving. "Going somewhere?" Seren spun, her heart slamming against her ribs. A man leaned against the stable doorway, arms crossed, watching her with sharp golden eyes. He was older than the king, perhaps by a decade, with the same pale hair and aristocratic features. But where Kale's face was carved from stone, this man's held a predator's smile. "Lord Corvus," Seren breathed, "will be regent once my nephew succumbs to his unfortunate condition." Seren's blood ran cold. "Condition? Oh, did he not tell you?" Corvus stopped beside her mare. "The king is dying, little Omega. Has been for years. The curse his father placed upon him is slowly freezing him from the inside out. The shadowed chain around his heart, the unnatural chill radiating from his skin. It all made sense now. Why are you telling me this?" "Because you intrigue me." Corvus's golden eyes fixed on her face. "No one has ever accepted a rejection from a true mate. The bond should have compelled you to fight. Yet you simply walked away." He tilted his head. "You've done me a great service tonight, Seren Voss. The king's wolf has been unstable for years. You were his last hope of anchoring it. Now that you've rejected him back, his wolf will tear him apart within the month. The throne will be mine." Horror flooded through her. "You planned this." "I merely encouraged my nephew to see reason." Corvus shrugged. "Now run along, little Omega, before they cage you with the other discarded things." He vanished into the shadows. Seren vaulted onto Mira's back and urged the mare toward the forest path. She had almost reached the tree line when a massive shape crashed through the undergrowth and blocked her path. A wolf, black as midnight, larger than any she had ever seen, with eyes that burned like blue flame. The king. Mira reared in terror. Seren clung to the saddle as the enormous wolf stalked toward her, his growl vibrating through her bones. "Your Majesty," she gasped, "you rejected me. Let me go." The wolf snarled, and the sound was anguished, furious, and desperate. Then, impossibly, the beast began to shift. Within moments, the Alpha King stood before her, naked and trembling. "I cannot," he said hoarsely. "My wolf refuses to let you leave. If you go beyond the border, he will hunt you. He will drag you back whether I command it or not." "That's not my problem." "I know." Kyle's face contorted with agony. "And I would do it again to keep you safe. But my wolf does not understand reason. He only understands that his mate is leaving, and he will burn this kingdom to ash before he allows it." Seren stared at him. "Then what do you want from me?" "Stay. Not as my mate, not as my queen, but as a guest under my protection. I will not touch you. I will not claim you. But I cannot let you leave. That sounds like a prison. It's the only compromise I can offer." Seren looked at this powerful, broken man fighting a war inside his own body. "Fine," she said. "I'll stay. But I have conditions. You will tell me the truth about your curse. All of it. And if I find a way to leave safely, you will let me go." "Agreed. On one condition of my own." "What?" His eyes met hers, and something ancient and desperate lurked in their depths. "Do not try to save me, Seren Voss. Whatever you see, whatever you learn, do not sacrifice yourself for a man who is already dead." He turned and walked back toward the castle, leaving her alone in the dark forest with more questions than answers. The chambers they gave her were beautiful. A canopied bed draped in deep blue velvet. Windows overlooking the moonlit gardens. A fireplace crackling steadily. It felt like a gilded cage. 3 days had passed since her confrontation with the king in the forest. 3 days of silence, of isolation, of servants who answered none of her questions. A knock at the door made her turn. "Enter," she called. The door opened to reveal a young woman about her own age, with copper hair and freckled cheeks. She carried a tray of food and offered a hesitant smile. "Good evening, my lady. I'm Isolde. His Majesty assigned me to attend you." Unlike the other servants, this one met her eyes. "Did he choose you specifically?" Isolde set the tray down. "He asked for someone who wouldn't be afraid of you, my lady. Most of the staff." She hesitated. "They say you're a witch. That's why you could resist the king's command. That's why he rages every night." "I'm not a witch," Seren said. It wasn't quite a lie. What she was had no name most wolves would recognize. She was halfway through a bowl of stew when another knock came, this one sharp and imperious. The door swung open before anyone could answer. A woman swept into the room, tall and regal, with silver blonde hair coiled atop her head. Her gown was crimson velvet trimmed with gold, and her eyes were the same pale blue as the king's. But where his held frost, hers held fire. "So," the woman said, looking Seren up and down. "You're the Omega who humiliated my son before the entire kingdom." Seren rose slowly. "Dowager Queen Thessaly. At least you know your courtesies." Thessaly's lip curled. "Though I had hoped my son would select a wife worthy of standing beside him." "With respect, your grace, he rejected me first." "And you should have fought." The Dowager Queen stalked closer. "Instead, you accepted his rejection like it meant nothing, and now the entire kingdom questions his strength." Seren held her ground. "Perhaps the kingdom should question a man who rejects his fated mate to begin with." Thessaly's eyes narrowed. "You have a spine, but spines break easily in this court." She leaned closer. "I don't know what game you're playing, but know this. I will not allow anyone to destroy my son. Not his uncle, not the curse, and certainly not some moon-touched peasant with ideas above her station. Curse, Seren repeated. So you know about it. Thessaly stiffened. Everyone knows. It's why no princess will have him. Why he's been alone for 10 years while his wolf tears him apart from the inside. Her voice cracked. My mate cursed him with his dying breath because Kale refused to execute me after he discovered my alleged affair. My son is dying to protect me, and there is nothing I can do to save him. Seren felt something shift in her chest. Beneath the venom lay a mother's grief. The king promised to tell me the truth, Seren said quietly. When he does, I may be able to help. Help? The greatest healers have tried. Nothing works. Thessaly straightened. Stay if you must. But don't fill my son's head with false hope. She turned toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Corvus has requested an audience with you tomorrow. I would advise you to decline. That man has been waiting for my son to die since the day the curse took hold. The door closed behind her. Minutes later, Isolde burst back in, face pale. My lady, come quickly, it's the king. He collapsed in the throne room. They're saying the curse has spread to his lungs. Her voice broke. They're saying he won't survive the night. Seren ran. She didn't think about propriety or protocol or the guards who shouted after her. She didn't think about Thessaly's warning or Corvus's golden eyes. All she could see were the threads of fate, and right now, the golden thread connecting her to Kyle was flickering like a candle in a storm. The throne room doors stood open, wolves crowding the entrance. Seren pushed through without apology. Kyle lay crumpled at the base of his throne, his skin white as bone, frost creeping visibly across his throat and chest. His beta, Daxon, knelt beside him, while healers shouted orders no one could follow. His temperature is dropping too fast, one healer cried. Fire won't help, another argued. The curse consumes heat. Seren dropped to her knees beside the king. Up close, he looked even worse. His lips were blue. His breath came in shallow rattles, and the shadowed chains she had seen around his heart had multiplied, dark tendrils wrapping around his lungs. Can you help him? Daxon asked desperately. I don't know, but I have to try. She reached for Kale's hand. The moment her skin touched his, she gasped. He was frozen, colder than ice, colder than anything living should be. But beneath that chill, she felt something else. His wolf. Howling inside him, thrashing against the chains, trying to reach her through the bond they had severed. Seren closed her eyes and did something she had never done before. She reached for the threads. Her gift had always been passive, a curse of seeing rather than doing. She could perceive the threads of fate that connected every soul. But she had never tried to touch them, to manipulate them. Her mother had warned her what happened to those who did. But her mother was dead, and the king was dying, and Seren refused to let Corvus win. She found the golden thread between them, still burning despite everything, and she pulled. Heat flooded through her, pouring from her core into their joined hands. It wasn't physical heat. It was something older, something that existed in the space between souls. The frost on Kyle's chest stopped spreading. His next breath came easier. Then his eyes flew open, gold, blazing with his wolf's presence. Mate, he growled, and the word resonated through her bones. Before she could react, his hand gripped the back of her neck, pulling her down until their foreheads touched. You shouldn't have done that, he whispered, his voice his own again. Whatever you just did, it tied us together more deeply. The bond is stronger now. I wasn't going to let you die. I told you not to sacrifice yourself for me. I didn't sacrifice anything. I shared something. Heat. Light. His grip loosened but didn't release. His thumb traced a small circle against her skin. You're shaking, he murmured. She was. The effort had drained something vital from her. I'll be fine, she said. Liar. But there was almost tenderness in the word. After the healers and Daxon withdrew, they sat together against the throne, and he finally told her the truth. My father discovered that my mother had been secretly communicating with a witch from the Southern Territories. He assumed it meant an affair, though she was only trying to find a cure for my younger sister Lysara, who was born sickly. His voice grew hollow. Lysara died before the cure could be found. My father blamed my mother, demanded I execute her for treason. When I refused, he used the last of his strength to curse me instead. The curse responds to emotional connection, Seren said slowly. The closer someone gets, the faster it spreads. Yes, when I felt the mate bond lock into place 3 months ago, I knew I had to sever it before it killed us both. But when you accepted the rejection and walked away, something inside me shattered. My wolf went mad. Your wolf wants me. My wolf would burn the world to keep you. Kale's voice dropped. And so would I, if I let myself. Seren reached out and took his hand. Then we find another way. A way to break the curse without you dying. You shouldn't make promises you can't keep. I don't. She met his eyes. I see the threads of fate, Kyle. Every soul, every connection, every possible future. Your death is not the only path forward. Surprise flickered across his features. You're a seer. Something like that. What else did you see when you looked at me? Seren hesitated. Then, because she had demanded truth from him, she offered truth in return. I saw that, if I had stayed and fought when you rejected me, I would have died within the month. Corvus has been orchestrating something, manipulating events from the shadows. That's why I walked away. The temperature in the room plummeted. Kale's eyes blazed gold again. What has he been orchestrating? He snarled. Seren met his gaze without flinching. I don't know the details yet, but I intend to find out. Over the following weeks, something shifted between them. It started small. Kale began summoning her to his study each evening, ostensibly to discuss the investigation into Corvus. They would sit across from each other at his massive oak desk, talking until the candles burned low. But the conversations always wandered. He told her about his childhood, about Lysara, about the mother he had protected at the cost of his own future. She told him about Thornwood, about her brother Bram who worried too much, about the gift she had spent her whole life hiding. My mother had it too, Seren explained one night. The sight. She called it the weaving, the ability to see and sometimes touch the threads that connect all living things. She taught me to hide it because people fear what they don't understand. Is that why you've never mentioned it before? Partly, but also because seeing isn't the same as changing. I can perceive possible futures, but I've never been able to alter them. What I did that night, pulling on the thread between us that was new. Kale's hand covered hers, stilling her nervous tracing on the desk. His skin had lost its deathly chill, warmth slowly returning. I'm sorry about your mother, he said simply. They sat like that for a long moment, hands touching, saying nothing. It became a pattern. Every evening she would come to his study. Every evening they would talk until the moon rose high. And every evening he would find some excuse to touch her. A hand on her shoulder as he leaned over to show her a document, fingers brushing hers when he passed her a cup of tea. His knee pressing against hers beneath the desk when the fire burned low. You're getting better, she observed one evening, pressing her palm flat against his chest. His heart beat strong beneath her hand. Kale went very still. You've been feeding me through the bond. I can feel it every time we touch. Realization dawned on her face. She hadn't known she was doing it consciously. Is that why you keep finding reasons to touch me? A faint flush colored his cheeks. Partly, but mostly I touch you because I cannot seem to stop myself. Kale. I know. He caught her hand, pressing it more firmly against his chest. I know this is dangerous. Every moment I spend with you risks accelerating the curse, but I've spent 10 years keeping everyone at arm's length, and I'm so tired, Seren. His voice cracked. I'm so tired of being alone. She stepped closer. Then let me stay. she whispered. His control shattered. He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. His body pressed against hers, still cooler than a wolf should be but improving by the second. This is madness, he murmured against her neck. Yes. I could hurt you. I know. Then why aren't you running? Seren pulled back to meet his eyes. Because the thread between us is the brightest thing I've ever seen. Whatever your father's curse tries to do, our bond is stronger. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was the kiss of a man who had been starving for 10 years. His mouth claimed hers with desperate hunger, his hands fisting in her hair. When they finally broke apart, Kale's eyes were gold again. Mate, his wolf rumbled. Mate, Seren agreed. That night, for the first time in 10 years, the Alpha King of Valdris slept without shivering. And curled against his side, her wolf finally at peace, Seren allowed herself to believe that everything might actually be all right. She should have known better. The next morning, disaster arrived, wearing Corvus's calculating smile. A delegation from the southern reaches had arrived. At their head stood a woman of breathtaking beauty, with raven hair and eyes the color of blood-red rubies. Who is that? Seren asked Isolde. The maid's face had gone pale. Lady Ravenna Blackthorn, daughter of the Southern Alpha. There were negotiations years ago for a marriage alliance with King Kale. Seren's stomach dropped. What happened? The curse. When word spread that the king was dying, her father withdrew her. But now Lady Ravenna has arrived with a witch who claims she can break the curse, and Lord Corvus has convinced the council that the king must marry her if the cure succeeds. Below, Corvus was welcoming the delegation, and standing beside him, face hidden by a deep hood, was a figure in dark robes. The witch. Seren looked at the threads swirling around the courtyard and felt her blood turn to ice. The witch's threads were corrupted, completely, utterly consumed by darkness, unlike anything she had ever seen. And one of those poisoned threads led directly to Kale. Absolutely not. Kale's voice echoed through the council chamber. He stood at the head of the table, hands braced against its surface, glaring at the assembled nobles. Your Majesty, please consider. I said no. I will not marry Lady Ravenna. I will not submit to treatment from a witch I've never met. Corvus sat at the far end, expression wounded. Nephew, I only want what's best for you. The witch, Morith, has cured similar curses before. And the price just happens to be my marriage to an allied princess who will produce heirs while I remain too weakened to rule? Kale's laugh was bitter. How fortunate. Lady Ravenna sat beside Corvus, ruby eyes hungry. Perhaps the king would prefer to die rather than be cured. Is that a threat, Lady Ravenna? Merely an observation. Ravenna smiled. Rumors suggest the little Omega has been sharing your bed despite the rejection ceremony. What happens between myself and Seren Voss is none of your concern. It's very much my concern if I'm to be your queen. You will never be my queen. Ravenna rose gracefully. The witch Morath has requested an audience. The council has already voted to approve the match, pending a successful cure. You have 1 month to accept, or they will invoke the ancient right of succession and declare you unfit to rule. She swept from the room, Corvus trailing behind. The remaining councillors shifted uncomfortably. You voted for this. Kale's voice was barely controlled. Behind my back? Your Majesty, we had no choice. The eldest councillor said. The curse is killing you. Lady Ravenna brings alliance and a cure. What does the Omega bring except scandal? She brings me, Kale snarled. She brings my wolf. She brings the only light I've felt in 10 years. Threaten her again, and I will tear your throats out myself. He stormed from the chamber. Seren found him in his study, forehead pressed against the window glass. Kale, she said softly, don't tell me it will be all right. His voice was ragged. The council has spoken. In 1 month, I either marry Ravenna or lose my throne. Then we have 1 month to find the real cure. Seren moved beside him. The witch Morath. Her threads are completely corrupted, consumed by darkness unlike anything I've seen. What does that mean? Nothing good. Morath isn't here to cure you. She's here to ensure you die in a way that looks like you refuse treatment. Kyle was silent for a long moment. If you're right, we have less than a month to expose them. Agreed. He turned to face her, raw vulnerability in his eyes. Whatever happens, I need you to know that these past weeks have been the best of my life. You've given me hope, comfort, a reason to fight. He kissed her, soft and deep. Then fight, she said, and let me fight beside you. That night, everything changed. Seren woke to screaming. Isolde burst through the door, face white. My lady, you have to run. They've arrested the king. What? On what charge? Murder. The witch Morath was found dead in her chambers, throat torn out by wolf's claws. The guards found King Kale standing over her body, covered in blood. The room spun. No, he wouldn't. Lord Corvus has declared himself regent. He's telling everyone you drove the king mad. They're going to execute you both at dawn. Serene's mind raced. The corrupted threads, Morath's tainted soul, Corvus's golden eyes. It's a trap. Morath was already dead when Kale found her. Someone used dark magic to frame him. Then we have to get you out. Footsteps thundered in the corridor. The door exploded inward. Guards poured into the room, Corvus at their head. He looked at Seren with those predator's eyes and smiled. Seren Voss, you're under arrest for conspiracy and treason. I've done nothing. Perhaps not. But by morning, no one will believe that. The guards seized her arms and dragged her from the room. The last thing Seren saw before darkness swallowed her was Corvus's triumphant smile, and wrapped around his heart, visible only to her eyes, the same corrupted threads that had surrounded Morath, pulsing with ancient, terrible power. The dungeons of Ironvale Keep had been carved from the mountain itself. The chill here was absolute, seeping into Seren's bones. But it wasn't the temperature that tormented her. Through the stone walls, she could feel Kale. The bond pulsed with his anguish, his rage, his despair. They had put him somewhere nearby, close enough to sense but too far to reach. Corvus's cruelty was precise. When the cell door finally scraped open, Seren squinted against the torchlight. Dowager Queen Thessaly descended the stairs, her silver blonde hair escaping its coils, her face drawn with exhaustion. You look terrible, she said flatly. Forgive me for not maintaining my appearance while awaiting execution. I've come to understand. Thessaly moved closer. My son didn't kill that witch. He's not a murderer. I know. Then tell me who did. Corvus. He's been using dark magic. The same corruption that surrounded Morath surrounds him. He killed her himself, then arranged for Kale to find the body. Thessaly's expression didn't change. Dark magic requires blood sacrifice. Where would Corvus have obtained such power? Seren thought of the threads she had seen, the pulsing darkness wrapped around Corvus's heart. I don't know. But the magic felt old, ancient, like it had been building for years. Years. Thessaly went very still. When my daughter Lysara died, Corvus was the one who found her body. He said she had simply stopped breathing. But what if... Horror dawned on both their faces. He sacrificed her, Seren whispered. Your daughter. He used her death to fuel dark magic. And my mate blamed me. Thessaly's voice shook. He cursed Kale for protecting me, never knowing the real enemy stood right beside him. The curse on Kale. It's not just from his father's dying breath. Corvus has been feeding it, strengthening it. That's why no healer has ever been able to break it. Then we need to sever the source. Thessaly's eyes burned with renewed purpose. Tell me how. I need to touch Corvus. If I can reach the threads around him, I might trace them back to their origin. Thessaly withdrew a ring of iron keys and unlocked the cell. The execution is set for dawn. Corvus plans to make a spectacle of it. Half the nobility will be gathered. Then that's where we need to be. There's something else. Thessaly's voice tightened. Corvus has your brother. Saren's blood turned to ice. Bram? He arrived 2 days ago, trying to rescue you. He's being held in the tower. If you try to expose Corvus and fail, your brother dies. Saren closed her eyes. Bram. Her protective, loving brother, who had begged her not to answer the king's summons. Where is Kale? The northern cells. Come. We don't have much time. They moved through the dungeon's winding passages, Thessaly leading the way with quiet confidence. When they reached the northern corridor, 2 guards stood watch. Thessaly didn't hesitate. The prisoner requires medical attention. Step aside. The guards exchanged uncertain glances but obeyed their former queen. They found Kale chained to the wall, silver manacles burning his wrists. When he heard them approach, he didn't look up. Come to watch me suffer, mother. I've come to set you free, you stubborn fool. Kale's head snapped up. The moment he saw Saren, something broke in his expression. You're alive. He strained against his chains. Saren, I didn't kill her. I swear to you. I know. She caught his face in her hands. Corvus did this. He's been using dark magic, feeding your curse, and we're going to stop him. How? I'm going to expose him. At the execution, in front of everyone. Alarm flashed across his features. You said manipulating the threads has consequences. Some things are worth the cost. You're worth the cost. Saren, no, I won't let you sacrifice yourself. I've seen the threads, Kale. Every possible future. In most of them, we both die. But in one, just one, we survive. We break the curse. We live. What does that future require? Saren smiled, though her heart was breaking. It requires you to trust me, no matter what you see, no matter what happens. Thessaly finished unlocking his chains. I trust you, Kale said quietly, with my life, with everything I am. He kissed her, fierce and desperate. When they parted, dawn was breaking through the narrow window. It was time. The execution courtyard was packed. Nobles crowded the galleries. Common folk pressed against the outer walls. And at the center stood Corvus, resplendent in royal purple. Citizens of Valdris, we gather today to witness justice served. Our beloved king has succumbed to the madness of his curse, and the Omega who drove him to this state must share his fate. Saren stood on the execution platform, hands bound. Across from her, Kale knelt in chains, eyes fixed on her face. Trust me, she willed him. Daxon stood among the guards, his face a mask of conflict. His eyes met Saren's briefly, and she saw something there. Doubt about his orders, loyalty to his true king. Lady Ravenna stood beside Corvus. Such a tragedy. If only the king had accepted proper treatment. Corvus raised his hand, and an executioner stepped forward. Wait. Every head turned toward the gallery where Thessaly had risen. I invoke the ancient right of final testimony. Before any execution of royal blood, the accused must be allowed to speak. Corvus's smile tightened. Of course. Speak, nephew. Kale rose slowly. I am innocent. The witch Morith was already dead when I entered her chambers. I was framed by someone who has been working against this crown for years. Someone who murdered my sister when she was just a child and used her death to fuel dark magic. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Grief has addled your mind, Corvus said smoothly. Your sister died of illness. Everyone knows what you told them. Kale's eyes locked onto his uncle. But not everyone can see what I see. He looked at Saren. It was time. She closed her eyes and reached for the weaving. The threads of fate exploded into visibility. Thousands of them. Millions. Connecting every soul in the courtyard. She felt the drain immediately. Felt her own life force beginning to pour out as she pulled the threads into the physical world. But she didn't stop. She found the corrupted threads wrapped around Corvus, seized them, and pulled. The world shifted. Suddenly, everyone could see what Seren saw. The dark corruption pulsing through Corvus's soul, the tendrils connecting him to Kael's curse, the ghostly image of a small girl hovering behind him, her throat marked with sacrificial cuts. "No," Corvus stumbled backward. "This is impossible." "I can see everything you've done, Corvus." Seren's voice echoed strangely. "Every lie, every murder, every dark ritual." The ghostly image solidified, and Thessaly let out a broken cry. "Lysera, my baby." "He killed her when she was 7 years old," Seren said. "Used her innocent blood to forge a connection to dark powers. When the old king discovered hints of magic, Corvus redirected the blame to the queen. And when Kael protected his mother, Corvus used the father's curse as a vessel for his own magic." The crowd erupted. Daxon moved first among the guards, turning to face Corvus with his sword drawn, his loyalty finally clear. And Corvus, his world crumbling, did the only thing he could. He attacked. Dark magic exploded from his hands, aimed directly at Seren. She saw it coming, saw the death it carried, and understood this was the moment. She could deflect and survive. Or she could let it hit her, and use the connection to tear Corvus's magic out by the roots. She chose. The darkness slammed into her chest. Pain exploded through every nerve. She heard Kael roar her name, heard chains breaking as his wolf took over. But she didn't fight. She embraced it. She followed it back along the corrupted threads, past Corvus's defenses into the very core of his power. And there, wrapped around his heart like a parasite, she found the source. She grabbed it with both hands and pulled. Corvus screamed, the darkness ripped free from his soul. His body convulsed, aged decades in seconds, collapsed into ash. And as the dark magic died, so did everything it had sustained, including Kael's curse. Seren felt it shatter, felt the chains dissolve, felt the bond between them blaze with golden light. Then the world went dark. She woke in a bed softer than clouds. "You're awake." Seren turned. Kyle sat beside her, face haggard, eyes red-rimmed, but color had returned to his skin. She could feel warmth radiating from him. "How long?" 3 days. He pressed her hand to his lips. 3 days of not knowing if you would ever open your eyes again. "Bram?" "Safe. Everyone's safe. Corvus is dead. Ravenna fled. The council has been restructured. Daxon led the guards who secured the castle." His voice broke. "The healer said you gave up too much of yourself, but the bond saved you. All that light you'd been feeding me came back when you needed it most." Seren's eyes filled with tears. "You saved me. We saved each other." He leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers. "Mate. Mate," she whispered back. 6 months later, Seren stood in the great hall of Ironvale Keep, wearing a gown of silver and gold. The kingdom had gathered to witness their Alpha King formally claim his true mate as queen. Her brother Bram stood in the front row, tears streaming down his face. Dowager Queen Thessaly sat in the gallery, a genuine smile softening her features. Daxon stood at attention near the throne, proud and steadfast. Even Isolde was there, beaming with pride. And at the altar, waiting with love blazing in his pale blue eyes, stood Kael. He was whole now, truly whole. The curse had left no trace. "You came," he murmured as she reached him. "Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might realize you could do better than a man who once publicly rejected you." Seren laughed. "I accepted that rejection, remember? Which means I get to decide when to reverse it." They exchanged vows, rings, and finally, the claiming. His teeth sinking into her neck as hers found his, marking each other permanently. The bond snapped fully into place, and Seren gasped at the rush of connection. "My queen," Kael breathed. "My king," she replied. Later, standing on the balcony overlooking their kingdom, Seren leaned into her mate's embrace. "What do you see?" Kael asked softly. "When you look at the threads now?" She smiled, watching the golden light that connected them pulse with eternal brilliance. I see children, 3 of them, with your eyes and my stubbornness. I see a kingdom that prospers. I see your mother finally at peace. And us? She turned to face him, cupping his cheek. I see us growing old together. I see a love that strengthens instead of destroys. She kissed him softly. I see everything we almost lost, and everything we gained by refusing to give up. Kale pulled her close. I spent 10 years believing I was cursed to die alone. Then you walked into my life, accepted my rejection, and turned everything upside down. Regrets? He laughed, free and joyful. Not a single one. Below them, Valdris stretched toward the horizon, full of wolves who had witnessed their love story unfold against impossible odds. It was a story that would be told for generations. The Omega who accepted rejection, the king who learned to love, and the bond that proved stronger than any curse.